All right, guys, we're live. Well, look, my name's Daine McDonald, and I've got a bit of a special announcement today. I was sitting down having some quiet time, meditating out in the backyard, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to reactivate our industry leader podcast. It's been about a year since we've done any episodes, and lo and behold, by chance, I had a meeting scheduled today with the guest on this show today, and I've literally just sprung on him about 3 minutes ago that we're doing a podcast. So he's been a super great sport about it, but it's a bit of a testament to the man that he is, the character that he has, because a lot of people would stress in a situation like this. This guy's just like, nah, we're going to fucking roll with it. So the guest that I've got today is none other than Jackson Peos. For a lot of you guys that are involved in the clean health community already, you guys have heard this name. You've seen him on social. He's a PhD in sports nutrition. He's a personal trainer. He's an online coach. He's a businessman. He's an entrepreneur. He's making some big fucking waves in the industry right now across a multitude of different sectors, which really ties into the theme of the show. So, Jackson, pleasure to have you here today, mate. How are you?
Very good. Always a pleasure to chat with you, Dane. As I was just saying, if you gave me a little bit more notice, I would have dressed a bit nicer and maybe did my hair a bit better. But as is always your style, here we go.
Yeah, man. Well, I think, and you can appreciate that too, being where you're at. I think, sometimes in business, in life, like, I think the people that kind of have a greater level of success are those that just can kind of make a decision then and there on the spot and roll with it, right?
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
So, look, I wanted to kind of start today for those of you that are listening to this right now that haven't heard your name before or don't know too much about you. I think, the first question I have, a lot of people are like, how did you start in the industry, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure we'll get to that, but I want to know why. So why did you start in the fitness industry? How did you go from, 10, 15 years ago being where you are to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, the cliche thing to say is like you pursued the career out of passion, but I truly 100% to my soul know that is the truth. Because when I was in school, the final years of school, I was a bit of a rascal and I didn't have too much direction in my life. I didn't really know where I was going, but I was competitive and relatively talented academically, and I would study hard and push really hard with my exams. Not really to set up a career, but just to beat all my buddies. Like I didn't want to fucking lose to them. That was really where that initial motivation came from. So when I was finishing my studies and it was time to put in your requests for different universities and different degrees, I still didn't really have any direction and know what I was doing. I mean, I loved playing sport and I loved being an athlete, but I was like, the idea of somehow monetizing that or creating a career out of that was not clear to me at the time. Yep. So I looked at all the different degree options that were available in Western Australia, and the hardest one to get into, which was like a 98 WACE score or a final year 12 exam score, was veterinary science. And so you have to be in like the top 2% of the state to be considered. And I was like, I like it. I love animals. And this will, I'm competitive, so I'll push to be able to get into this degree. And I did. I pushed and I got into it, and I started studying veterinary science. And so
Jackson the vet.
Yeah, that's where it was heading. That's where it was heading.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, not too many people do. And so the way they set up your first few years of uni, as you'll know, is you have like your core units, but then they throw in a couple of like elective units which can't be part of your core study. And one of my elective units I chose was a sports exercise science unit, just a little side thing. And as I was sort of going through this elective unit, which was such a small piece of my studies at the time, I was putting in this enormous amount of effort into this one elective unit, which really had no influence on my degree progression or anything like that. It was basically just a formality. And I was really fucking passionate about it and opening my eyes up to how science can make people faster, stronger, perform better, and all of these things. And I was like, geez, I fucking love this. And then it kind of dawned on me. I was like, geez, if I'm putting more effort into this one little elective unit than I am into my other core units of veterinary science, I probably need to make a change here. And my parents were absolutely distraught
Oh
because
yeah.
their son,
The son, the vet, compared to son, the sports scientist. Like we know what rings better from a family name branding perspective, right?
yeah, and like in 2012, man, like there wasn't much credibility so much in like sports science like
No,
there is now. Like
no.
Lane and stuff did a whole bunch for like adding credibility to that.
Yeah.
But back then, it was like, God, if you're doing sports science, you're going to be a PT, and that's as far as you're going. Like, you're just going to be like, you're selling yourself by the hour, and that's your cap. You go no further than this. And I remember very clearly my mum in her like emotional state saying, "You're going to be fucking cleaning floors at the gym." That's what she told me when I told her I was going to make this change. But
Yeah.
like I've always been hugely like confident in myself, and I was like, if it doesn't matter if there's a lower standard of people pursuing sports science, the cream always rises, and if you're at the
100%.
top in whatever you do, you'll be able to be very successful and dominate that. So that's sort of the belief that I had.
Mm.
And so that's what led me to changing universities, changing degree, leaving all the vet stuff behind, and pursuing sports science, exercise, and health for a double major degree for my first 3 years. And that was very enjoyable for me. And a lot of it did come easy to me, but work comes easy when your passions are aligned with it. Like you have no issues putting in the after hours when you're heavily invested and your passions are aligned with that. So I mean that 3 years sort of just zoomed by, and getting exposed to like all the intricacies of muscle building and speed and power and endurance and all of these things was just, yeah, it was hugely fulfilling. And it was
I
just
used to love when I was doing that. It was like all the strength and conditioning stuff
hmm.
that you kind of do. Like it's like really like, oh wow, that's exciting.
And that little sort of what am I going to say, that little sort of flame that I had,
Mm.
which it was just more wood going on that, and like just creating like a bigger and bigger bonfire in relation to like my passion for this. And then so finishing the degree, my final exams in that third year were solid, and then the university offered me a scholarship to then take a step forward and go into an honors degree in exercise physiology. And this is where things become a little bit more specialized, and this was my main introduction to not so much strength and conditioning, but the nutrition side of things, and how that plays in. And it didn't take me long to figure out that all of these athletes in football, rugby, boxing, all these things, they all fucking train really, really hard. They all do that. Like it's very consistent, but where a massive amount of them drop the ball is management of their nutrition. And I
Especially when a lot of them are genetically blessed and they're
yeah,
used to getting by on macas. So
yes,
like they're already in the 1 percentile genetically, and they can eat fucking shit and still out bench you or I.
exactly. And what excited me a lot as I was learning more and more was the realization that some slight adjustments to these athletes' eating approach could allow them to make quantum leaps, much bigger leaps than any tweaks to their training could do, because a lot of those athletes that are doing well, their intensity of effort is still hard, and especially in the team sports, where that's where a lot of the university-based education comes from. They're all on the same training programs, and they're all pushing really hard. But a massive separator, it can come with the nutrition. And I just figured out that God, like this nutrition side of things, which was hugely underrated back then, it's like that's just a tool that nobody's using, and no one's really understanding. And if you give the athlete that tool, it can easily make a massive distance between sort of them and the rest. So that's where sort of my passion for sort of just sports science in general sort of became a lot more focused towards the nutrition tunnel. And that's where like my real love for nutrition started to come from. And from that, I still had no idea how this passion I had was going to translate into a business. I had absolutely no idea, but I didn't fucking care, because I loved what I was doing. And I thought maybe worst comes to worst, I just follow this track and I become a professor and I lecture on this stuff. Like
Yeah.
that was sort of my worst case result. And I'm like, that still appeals to me, so we're good. And then I just started reaching out to like a few different friends during this honors year that were playing footy and competing in like INBA shows and stuff like that. And I was like, listen, could I just try some things that
Mm.
I have in my mind here with your diet? Like, you don't need to pay me. Like, all that I ask is you just give me a bit of trust and
Yep.
follow what I'm saying here. And man, that was fun for me, like to be able to steer the ship on a couple of little mini projects and test out.
Well, that's what you've just mentioned. Then we'll come back to it. Delayed gratification,
Mhm.
because one thing we spoke about recently at Clean Health Live, I think all of us presenters, was the fact that at some point in our career, we've had to basically, in essence, bend over for a while, take
Mhm.
it to get our brand, our name, our reputation, our methodologies out there to give us credibility.
But that's why I think it's so important to only get in this game if you're passionate about it.
100%. Yeah,
If you do have that passion, you act like you don't mind bending over a little bit. Like it's
yeah,
a
100%.
weird analogy, but like you're getting some enjoyment
Yeah.
out of bend over.
Oh, look, anyone that listens to me knows me. Like, my fucking analogies are all in the dark side, brother. So, um, but and so obviously you started obviously doing that. How did that kind of go from you end up going from your honors and then taking that next step to do your PhD? Because I think that to me is like, whenever I'm like, people kind of sometimes like, oh, do I need to go that far with studying? I'm like, you don't need to. But
Mhm.
I do find that people that do, when you've stuck something out that long, it's a good kind of indicator on the type of resilience and mindset that person has, because it can translate into other areas of their life in terms of work ethic, as I
Mhm.
think it has with you.
Yeah, I mean, like at that phase, so I finished my honors degree and I did well. I got first class honors, and then the uni is like, okay, we want you here. Here's your PhD offer with, like, you're not paying for any of the studies. We're going to give you a salary, stuff
Mhm.
like, not a big salary, but a salary. And they make a nice, appealing offer. And I still wasn't confident that like to go out on my own yet. This was way too early. Like I'd
Yep.
started doing a few pro bono jobs for fun with friends, but it
Mhm.
took me until the end of the first year of my PhD before people started being like, "Hey, I heard you like helped out with so and so. Could you help me out?" And then that sort of request started becoming pretty frequent. And then I was like, "Geez, I should probably charge for this at some point."
Yep.
But going back to your question about like the honors masters type bracket in the middle there, it's a very very tricky little space there, a very
Mm.
tricky little space because this is going to be controversial, but I don't think that masters or honors is worthwhile unless you actually plan to go all the way with PhD. I truly do believe that because I don't think that there's a significantly more demand for people with honors or masters versus just having your BSc in sports
So you
science.
think it's more like from a commercial aspect, or the knowledge that you learn doing the additional 2-3 years for the
Well,
PhD?
not the knowledge is there for sure, but that knowledge that you obtain in that 12 months, you can probably get 85% of it through going through the right courses and
Mm.
like the clean health stuff, going through those right courses for somewhere in the vicinity of 20% of the price. And
It's
probably,
funny, yeah.
probably about 50% of the time. So it's like 50% of the time, 20% of the cost, you can probably accumulate that knowledge. And I can only say that because I've been through it and I know what's in there.
No, I would back that. Like, obviously, you can't tell with this youthful complexion, but I've been in the industry a little bit longer, so I've seen it, right? And so I've always said to people, like, I only got my bachelor degree. I didn't go and do the postgrad and that, and I was meant to. I was going to go and do a postgrad, an accelerated degree actually in physio. But then I went from working part time during my degree to working full time. And then within 6 weeks of working in a commercial gym full time, I was earning 3-4 grand a week. I'm like, well, fuck this. you know. And so all of my knowledge that I learned, to become a top level trainer, I learned on the job and through the right courses. So
Mhm.
from a return on time investment, um, for me, kind of going to stage one, stopping in terms of tertiary qualifications and then just learning on the fly, it was cheaper and quicker.
Mhm. It's
And
true.
so in essence, I just went straight to the top experts in the world, learned from them, got a better return on time investment that I was able to translate into more impact with my clients and income in a shorter window,
Mhm.
from my experience. So I agree. Like, I think trainers these days, you kind of got three options. Option one is just get qualified and then start. Option two is go to stage two, which is undergrad degree. And then option three, yeah, you're right. Like, might as well just go all the way in, go all in, get your
Yeah.
PhD, because you're right. Like, master's PhD, it's much of a much. You're better off spending a little bit of extra time, because once you've got that doctorate badge, by the way, that's a massively outside of the knowledge, obviously, but the branding that you can attach to that on social these days, it's hard to quantify the value in that.
Oh, it's a massive asset, and it's largely the reason why I'm
Mm.
speaking to you right now. Like, I'm under no
Yeah.
delusion of that, you know. So if if you have a really strong drive
Mm.
and work ethic, because PhD is a fucking grind, because you have no one looking over your shoulder, and you need to have massive intrinsic motivation to be able to work when no one's checking up on you and no one's asking for
Mm.
updates, no one's asking for assignments or setting you deadlines or anything like that. You need to set them all yourself. If you have that, I could not recommend it more, you know, because
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I really wanted to push all the way with the PhD, even to the point where I'm maybe making $5,000 a week, you know, and I could have easily stepped away and been like, fuck, I'm getting paid fuck all for this PhD, and it's taking up much more time than my actual paid work is. Like, maybe I should just step back and ride off into the sunrise on this money that I'm making. The reason I didn't do that is because that stamp, that does not expire. So if
Yeah.
everything, and I always knew that if everything fucking blew up in my life and everything turned to shit, I can always go back to that, and you're always going to be in demand, and someone is going to take you, because that is the highest level of credibility
Mm.
that we can obtain in this industry, like the biggest amount of trust in your name that you know what you're talking about, you know. So
Mm.
that's why I really was bullish to chase after it, because I think it was just, it's so important, and I have no regrets for going through with it, even though it was probably up there with one of the biggest challenges that I've had to grind through.
I definitely think if you're academically inclined, because not everyone is,
No.
there are practical based coaches and academically inclined coaches. I think if you're academically inclined, like, if I could rewind 20 years, I still, even today, like, in the ego in there somewhere, there's part of me that's like, I'd like to do a PhD.
Mhm.
Now, at this point in my life, 41, business, kids, ain't gonna fucking happen. Like, it would purely be a knowledge and ego play for me right now. It's not necessary for where I'm at. But if I could go back to young 19, 20-year-old Daine, academically inclined, all that type of stuff, 100%.
Yeah.
I would have just gone all in on it, because then at the age of 25, 26, I've got a fucking PhD in nutritional sports science. As I'm studying, I'm working with people, I'm putting stuff out on social. By the time I'm 25, even whilst I'm studying, I've already got an online coaching business. I'm already earning six figures. I'm already impacting potentially thousands of people around the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Big time.
It, it's such a different industry, which kind of leads into my kind of next question is, like, you obviously came from that, did the degrees, started kind of working with people, started getting paid to work with people. Like, if we kind of fast forward a little bit to kind of the last several years of applying that, like, what type of clientele are you specifically, you would have gone from, like, work with everyone to work with niche kind of phase. Like, who are you primarily serving these days, in your business from a client perspective?
Yeah. I've sort of had a weird, like, circle, because
Hmm.
when I first started reaching out to people, because of the university education is highly team sports based. That's where you learn your most.
Yeah.
People like, because we have big voices in our industry like Lanes and stuff like that. People assume that like you go to these tutorials and lectures at uni and like we're talking about bodybuilders. It's like it does not happen. It's like we're talking about real sports at
Yeah.
university, and so that was sort of the people that I was reaching out to. It's like I can teach you what to eat after your football game, and you're not going to feel fucked tomorrow. And like that, this was big stuff, you know. Like you can do better than a pie and a beer after your game. Like that's what my first sort of target was. But then as I started getting results for them, I got a heavy like Gen Pop request. So it's like my mum's friend was like, hey, like I've got this holiday coming up. Like, can you like tell me what to eat or something? And like, so I was getting requests from like very like base level Gen Poppy stuff where it was like super simple. And now I'm sort of swinging back towards more of like an athlete dominated clientele. But when I say athlete, sometimes not necessarily competitive, you know, and I use the term athlete in the sense of people that want to push, you know, like they don't.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, what type of and this would probably help quite a few trainers out there. Like, how do you quantify beginner, intermediate, advanced? Obviously, there's different things that you can look at, like training age, neurological efficiency, time under the bar, all that type of shit. Like, how are you, from a layman's, how are you quantifying that?
Yeah, see, I look at it super differently. Like when in terms of the scale from like beginner to advanced, I quantify it in the sense of like how much are you willing to give up?
Mindset.
Yeah, like I truly do, because I do believe that is the biggest predictor of how good your results are, is how much you're willing to give up on this mission that we're going into together. Now, the beginner, they're not willing to give up too much. It's like, yeah, they would like a little bit of fat loss and they'd like to build a little bit more muscle, but don't ask me to give up my Friday night burgers with the boys. You know, I'm not willing to give that up, or don't ask me to give up like bachelor night with the girls where we have our snacks and our wines. Like I'm not willing to give that up. You know, they're not willing to give up too much. But the advanced mindset is like, and it sounds a little bit rough, but it's sort of the people that I'm more emotionally aligned with is the people that say like, if I have to eat dirt because it will make me better, I'll do that. Like you just tell me like what's necessary, I'll do that there.
Where do you want me to get the dirt from? My backyard, the front yard?
They're just saying, give me the shovel.
Well, yeah, and I kind of been seeing it actually, like with some of your stuff you're putting out on social at the moment, like the Bat Cave and things like that. Like you're kind of building this community. Is that kind of where a lot of this is coming in with what you're doing these days? Just it's a lot of it seems to be on mindset.
Yeah, I just heavily underrated the value of mindset, I think, and it's because mindset is very difficult to quantify. And I've just come out of 8 years of being at university and reading more studies than anyone could count, and it's all about values and numbers. You know, it's about it's about objectives, variables that we can tightly measure, and p-values. You know, and how are you going to put a p-value on someone's mindset? You know, and it took me a long time to figure out, like, I need to pull my head out of the PubMed bottom line a little bit here,
100%,
and start looking a little bit more into the psychological.
And I'll say this to everyone listening now, like you came to it at an earlier conclusion that I did. I'll give that to, like, from a standpoint of the whole IQ versus EQ, because there is no IQ attached to mindset. Mindset is a habitual routine, you know, is one way of describing it. It's a philosophy, an approach to life. You can't really measure it.
No.
You know, like an example for me this morning, it's like 6-7 degrees at the moment. Like when I wake up in the morning, it's fucking cold, and I live on the water. And so about 4 or 5 times a week, I'll jump in an ice bath. And so at the moment, it's a self-regulating ice bath, like it's plugged in. It'll be like this morning when I went to it at 5 a.m., it's pitch black dark, it's fucking windy, it's cold. I'm there in my dick stickers, and it's 2.6 degrees. And I went up to this morning and I looked at it and I'm like, why the fuck am I doing this? Like I had a bitch moment. I'm like,
Mm,
why the fuck am I doing this? I'm like, this is what the fuck. No one's up. I'm here by myself. It's fucking cold. It's 2.6 fucking degrees. And then I just stood there and like, no, fuck this. And I literally just jumped in, like literally almost jumped in the thing and stayed in there for 3 minutes and got the fuck out. But and so for me, I do that to activate my mindset every day.
yeah, I call that sword sharpening. Like you do shit like
Yeah.
that, and you come out of like you just made that sword of yours like a little bit fucking more dangerous. You know, you just sharpen that motherfucker.
And hey, I mean, since doing that, like I've had such a productive day today.
Yeah,
Honestly, I've gotten so much shit done within my own life, and even like this chat that we're having now and stuff like that. So, 100%. Which would kind of like, what would you recommend based off your experience? Because I know you went through a dark night of the soul experience, which, guys, if you're listening, you can actually listen to the full lecture that Jackson does on this on the Clean Health Live on demand from our conference that we did last month. But what would you say? Like, what have you learned about the mind, and how have you reprogrammed your mind over the last 12, 18 months to kind of, like, again, like you kind of, man, the last 18, 24 months, and I'm sure, I encourage any listeners to look into this. Like, you went from having a name and being an online coach to kind of now you got fucking residences, you've got cafes, you've got restaurants, you've got so many different things. Like, what did you do? What are 3 or 5 things that you did to just fucking build this relentless momentum?
hmm I think like it definitely took me losing everything that I had to come to this realization of like just how temporary life is, and how little the runway is in front of us to be able to do all the things that we want to do. And having that year where I basically just went nowhere other than backwards,
Yeah.
it made me really appreciate time. So because I had to, for the first time, slow the fuck down massively, like much more than I would ever want to. And I've never done meditation or anything like that. But when I was in my house, because I couldn't fucking leave my little apartment for
Yeah.
8 months. I was stuck in there. And I'm the sort of guy that's like, yeah, give me TV for 2 hours, but then my brain starts going a little bit crazy. Like I can't just sit there and binge watch something. So I'll just sit there on my couch, like just thinking. And I became so aware of the minutes just ticking by. And every day that went by, that feeling of like, fuck, I just wasted it. And I'd never.
You became present.
I'd never been present. I'd never valued 24 hours so much. So all I was doing was just honing in my mind over and over. It's like when those doors open again, you don't fucking stop. You do not fucking get comfortable. And every single day, you make sure that when you're laying down in bed, you can write down some things that you productively did to get further, to progress more. And I've said, like, I've been using the little phrase like of this year was like being like on the mission. And like that's what my comeback year. This is it. Like it is just being on a mission, and that mission is in 12 months to be physically, financially, mentally better in everything, and that is broken down to monthly tasks, weekly tasks, and daily tasks. And like I've never done this before, but like just this year, I've got this little fucking year ago. I would have been like, "Oh, Daine loser," little journal. Like, but now,
Yeah.
like, I write the shit down. Like, I remind myself at the start of the day what I'm working on, and I have much more clarity. And then you start your first minutes of every single day. It's like, okay, we're on the mission now. Like we're not fucking around. And just those little pockets of time that people fucking waste, like being on Instagram when you don't need to be, like chat, socializing when you don't need to be, like all those little times I'm like, okay, I look at every minute now in my day as like an investment, like, am I getting a return on that, or am I spending those minutes? And having that mindset every day increases productivity fourfold. if not more. Like
Mm.
people are saying to me now, like, you need to, and you've probably had all these same sort of comments, and I'm just sort of starting on this journey. Like, slow down, you're taking too much on, you need to have balance. And I'm like,
I had that. I had two staff members today say, "You really need to take a holiday now." I'm like, "I'm not fucking taking a holiday.
yeah,
I'm on a fucking mission. I got shit to do. I'll
yeah,
take that later in the year."
yeah,
But like, I'm a month out from end of financial year, and like, we've already beaten our best ever year. I don't want to just beat it. I want to annihilate it.
yeah. Another term I've been using this year is like the separation season. It's like there's everyone else, but it's like this is the time to like create the distance. And the only way you create distance from the rest is putting in the extra.
You did a post that I loved in the last 48 hours, I think, on this about like your mindset towards like family, friends, social, and kind of people being aligned from a mission perspective. I think you've kind of gone through a few things there, but talk about your environment and its impact on where you're at in your career right now.
Yeah, I've never realized so much how important the value of the environment is. I just hugely underrated it. But it's like you take a plant, right? It's you put it in the shade all the time, it's gonna fucking wither and die. You move it 1 meter to the right sun, the right temperature, it's gonna grow to its maximum potential. So environment is fucking everything with regards to your growth and your development. And I think one of the massive mistakes people make, especially entrepreneurs when they're trying to build a business, is putting themselves around too many people, especially if you've got big goals. Because if you've got big goals, that is by definition saying that I want to do better than most people or everyone. I want to put myself above. So if you're constantly being around a big social circle, where do you think you're going to get pulled? Do you think you're going to get pushed? Fuck no, because your goals are already above them. In anything, you're just going to get slowly pulled back onto their level. So, I mean, I've had to cut off a lot of ties. And I've had to, for this phase of life where I'm on the mission and I'm trying to separate, it's going to mean a bit of isolation and a bit of solitude. But like, I love the quote from Pablo Picasso where he says, "Without great solitude, no great work is possible." And that is more true than I've ever realized right now, because it's only since I've severed some ties and brought that tighter circle that all of these things have started to move. Because if you define your moves by the people that are around you, you will stay average. You will stay average. The bigger group, but by group averages, the bigger group around you means the more closely you're going to approximate the average or the mean, and therefore all of your efforts are going to be defined by the average or the norm. And if you've got big goals, how are you going to achieve them if you're constantly framing your efforts by the norm? You just won't go anywhere.
I think that was I've learned that the hard way. And I think that was one thing, even recently, like when you were out in Australia and we did the Clean Off Live event, how cool was it to have like all of the presenters and all of the students, but all of the presenters, every single one of them was what? Super fucking hungry and motivated to change the world.
Yeah, and I'll add a good point here, because I bet so many people are fucking surprised by this. But like on Sunday, like Sunday is one of my heaviest check-in days, and we had the 4-day conference, the 4-day seminar on that Sunday as well. So I had a bunch of check-ins that I had to do. So I went out the back to do some of my check-ins to catch up. And guess who's in a fucking room out the back at 6 o'clock on his laptop doing work? Fucking Lane Norton. He was in the back as well, staying after to handle shit. And that was fucking surprising to me, because I like, this guy's at the pinnacle. He could outsource a bunch of shit, and he could easily tap out at the time that everyone else went home, and people, no one would bat a fucking eyelid. But he's back there staying late to handle his own shit. And I think like that's something everyone needs to realize, is like, these guys succeeding, they are not putting in average hours. They are not. Like, I'd be highly fucking surprised if they were, because you need to do extra if you want to separate. That's just like, I truly do believe that.
100%. And like, it doesn't, I think when you, and I tell people, it's all right if you don't have the same mission as me.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean that I might not have as much time for you. And I don't mean that from a bad way.
Mhm.
But like I can attest to the inner circle as I've aged, like dwindling, you know, from 20 years ago to like this. So, I always tell, young entrepreneurs or people wanting to go out there and make an impact, like choose your relationships fucking wisely. Like, and it doesn't matter if they're family, man. Like, I love my parents. I have limited time for my parents because they're not, not to get woosah, they're not resonating on the same like frequency or energy as me. They don't have, they're happy to be stuck with where they're at in life and repeat the trauma cycle.
Yeah.
I'm not like if I go through a pain process, I want to evolve and level up until I get to another learning curve where I need to level up and then keep doing that again. So I think it's a continuous thing. I think that's one thing the fitness industry does. I feel is it attracts a lot of people that do have that mindset.
Mhm.
There are a lot of fitness entrepreneurs that are out there these days, like killing it, doing awesome stuff, out there in the industry, which kind of ties into one of the things that I want to talk to you today about, but also our guest is actually announcing our partnership. Clean Health and Jackson. From our end, man, we're super grateful that you've chosen to partner up with us. I know that you could do this yourself and or do this with anyone, but you've chosen to do it with us, which is super grateful for that. But I also want to like kind of talk, like we're going to be pulling out this first course on, in particular, optimizing transformations for men. Do you kind of want to like just talk to the students a little bit about kind of, what you see is going to be, coming into this course, how it's going to help them, etc.
Yeah. So I think the real value in this course comes from filling a gap, and that gap is every sort of course that's mostly out there talks about coaching, training the human, right?
Mm.
And in fact, I think maybe the females actually get a little bit of careful more attention than the guys do
They
in this.
do. 100%. They do.
There's very rarely specialized coaching information with respect to males versus females.
Mm.
And coming from me, who's worked with thousands of individuals, and you'll agree with this as well, coaching a female versus a male is not the same. And
No.
if you try to approach your coaching the same, you will not reach an optimal outcome with them. That is a fact because
Mm.
males and females are wired completely differently. Now,
100%.
I think where our course is really going to make a massive impact is by teaching coaches how to understand a little bit better the male mind, the male ego, what
Mm.
makes us tick, what makes us motivated, and what makes us struggle. Understanding those are fundamentals with how to cater your coaching to the male more precisely. And we're going to teach them how you can harness all of those elements of the male psyche to
Mm.
be able to take your results far further with them versus if you were just taking more of a holistic, this is how you coach humans type.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And it's difficult because a lot of the research that comes out regarding nutrition and training prescription is males and females thrown in a bag together, and that makes it quite difficult. But I think by specializing more on male orientated physique prescription is going to be
Mm.
hugely beneficial for coaches to understand.
And I think one of the things that you touch base on, like the male ego, the male mind, I think, we're in such a, unfortunately, we've become such a woke orientated world, which is no whole other can of worms we could get open, but I'm not going to bother today. I know
Yeah.
we're philosophically aligned there. That I think sometimes like it's like a lot of coaches out there are treating males the same way they would an average female client, both in terms of how they communicate and articulate. And the reality is, the way that you coach and communicate with a male should be fucking different than a female. Men intrinsically respond better, in my opinion, to a very direct line of communication and also a very I wouldn't say non-nurturing, But sometimes you've got to fucking bust the envelope open to really get inside there, get inside to the psyche of the male, and kind of really help unlock their fullest potential as not just in their training, but in fucking life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The world is a better place if there's more men out there unlocking their highest potential and being the best version of themselves. And I think the starting point for a lot is their body through training, through nutrition, through mindset, which like you see, you've done really well, like with the communities that you're building, like talk us a little bit about like what goes on inside your community. In particular, some of our students right now are blokes out there, they might be looking at a coach, like you've got that service. Like, what does it look like if we're coming to you as a client?
Yeah, so like my coaching has shifted quite a lot in sort of the last 12 to 18 months, really, as I've started to learn a little bit more about the male psyche myself,
Yeah.
and how to harness that for my own advantages. And that's what I want to pass on to the courses, like what of all the successful learning points I've acquired, how can I share them with others so they can make those sort of level ups with themselves. But my coaching has drifted from far more being like, how can we optimize our macro prescription, our timing, our calories, our training, all of those sort of things, that like the quantitative, but how can we now sort of almost add a fucking turbo booster to it by harnessing the mindset as well? Because I feel like, and this is advice for coaches coming here hot right now, like the fitness industry is getting fucking smarter. So a few years ago, we could be really successful fucking coaches just by giving them the right macros and teaching them how to split them up and giving them the right calories to encourage a certain amount of weight loss or weight gain per week that is optimal. But people are learning how to do this shit themselves now. So if you're coaching, if as advanced as you can go is calorie and macro prescription, you've got a short expiry date.
Oh, 100%. Like you've got to be able to provide the value. I think even for like female trainers that are training like male executives and things like that, like this type of program that we're creating is going to be super advantageous. Like anyone that's training men, it's not, and to be clear, it's not just for male trainers, female trainers that want to understand men in particular, because like for example, male executives or male aesthetics, they tend to be very stable clients in terms of they've got the income to pay ongoing.
Yes, and when you're working with a male client, like this is going to be one of the things we'll cover in the course, they pretend to be a lot more quantitatively driven versus qualitatively driven, in the sense of they want to see numbers, they want to see checkpoints where they can make quantitative assessments of their progress. Whereas a female client, they're going to be more interested in the qualitative. How are you feeling? Like, how was your mood this week? Things like this. So if you're a female coach and you're sort of putting a massive emphasis on a male client with regards to like how they're feeling, how their stress levels and things are, like you're probably going to get some resistance and conflict with that male client, because he's going to be like, no, but how, like, did I win this week or did I lose? For males, they're a lot more black and white. It's like, was this a good week or a bad week? Whereas sometimes with more of a female-based approach, it can be like there's no black or white with regards to how the week went. It's grey somewhere in the middle, and no week is a failure, and no week is a win. But with males, they'll get very frustrated if you just keep telling them like they're going okay. They're grey, because like. We want to see numbers. That's how the males are driven. And I think that's important for coaches to realize, especially from a client retention type perspective.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. Look, I'm super excited for it myself. I mean, obviously, we've been looking at, you and I have been looking at the course outline. I think it's going to wow a lot of coaches. And to be honest, I can't think of anything out there right now available for trainers, or even people that are listening right now that just want to level up their own kind of training as men. Like, fuck, I think you're going to benefit from it. But there's nothing else out there like it at the moment, which is exciting, man. So I think other than that, like, tell us a little bit about like what the rest of this year has in store for you. Obviously, You are based in Bali. Right now, you've got your Pump Kitchen brand in both Perth and you can obviously in Bali. You get into a moment. Like, what's in store for you? Like, obviously, people can go to your Instagram at Jackson Peos. They can go to the website at Jackson Peos. But tell us a little bit about more like just this whole entrepreneurial thing that you've got going on right now.
My dream has always been to sort of set up a lifestyle where I can just do things that I'm purely passionate about only, you know. Mm-hmm. And to do that, you need to be able to have a decent amount of passion of passive income flowing in.
Yep.
So that you get the flexibility to say, I really love this mission or this objective. I'm going for that, and I have the freedom to do so. So my initial plans are the next stage of the mission will be to start getting some franchises of Pump Kitchen in the next 12 to 24 months. The initial brand building phase is still not quite complete, but I think the credibility is starting to build, the word of mouth is starting to build. The concept is solid. It's just making sure the execution of the concept across both stores is really, really refined, so that when someone comes in and says, listen, I want to open a Pump Kitchen in Sydney or something, like it can be a nice, clean rollout. Then I have the accommodation projects going, Japanese styled villas getting built in Bali. I have a 6 apartment complex that will be finished in October, and then a second just 2-story villa that will be finished December 31st, they say, so might be a little bit of a New Year's Coke Zero for that one. That's just another passion project. I've always had passion for style in how I dress, how I design, like how I...
You see it with your branding.
Yeah, how I
saw it at your outfit at Clean Off Live too.
Yeah, I care about that stuff. So those things are on the go. And then the biggest mission, which is
just actually before you get to the biggest mission, with the second one, like, so when they're open, like if I'm someone listening right now, like what can I do there? Can I come and stay there? Like, what's the actual business?
Yeah, so like a big part of it is most likely just going to be Airbnbs,
okay.
Where I'll probably do half of them for like some monthly stays for people that are here a little bit more permanent. And then because they are quite higher end, do some nightly stays for people as well. So probably have some short and medium term. But what I also want them from, and this sort of leads into the big mission, is I want to sort of set up a kingdom here in Bali where I can run camps, seminars, courses, and have a place for people to stay, have a place for people to eat, have a place for people to learn, and then finally have a place for people to train, recover, and do all those sort of things. So my big mission at the moment is a training facility, training and recovery center facility. So I've got 1,000 square meters of land bought out in a beautiful area in Bali, a little bit further out, but it's going to take me a 12-month stint to get this project rolling anyway, which I think will line up nicely with the growth of Bali and the direction that it's moving. But it's basically the best gym in Bali in terms of like the kit out, the facilities catered to people that aren't there to take selfies, but are there to fucking train. And then ice baths, saunas, hot baths, monsoon showers, 25-meter lap pool, all in one.
It sounds like the type of stuff they got in Dubai these days.
Well, I'm trying to fucking bring it to Bali, honestly, man. Yeah. And I just want to make it a hub. And so, like, I envision us doing like collab clean health things out here where we bring
100%
people.
We're down. Hey, fuck! I haven't been to Bali that much, but I love the place. I think, you know, and if you like bring that level of quality for what we all love and passionate about, I think is it's exciting, man. Like, honestly, like, and I can appreciate it. I think like just the amount of, you know, you spoke before about going through hard times and solitude, trauma, but it also builds resilience
100%.
and resilience over time builds what you have and are building, man. So like, honestly, kudos, brother. I love seeing it. I love what you're about. I love what we're doing together. Keep fucking doing you, brother. And again, for anyone listening right now, You can follow Jackson on Instagram, actually also on YouTube. I think that's where you're putting a lot of your long form content with the mission.
I'm back up. I'm 4 posts deep, but it's in the contract that I write with myself now. So they're coming. They're coming. There's non-negotiable.
There you go. That's a quote. The contract that I write with myself. I think normally I'd ask like a key piece of information take away, but I think you just kind of said it, man.
Yeah. It sounds stupid, but I sign it. I write the shit that I'm going to do for this year, and then I sign it. And it's like any other contract you have in business or salaries and things like that. It's like you don't break that contract, you get fucked over, right? So like I take that approach with things that I say I'm going to do with myself, and I be accountable with myself. So if I'm signing this contract, it means it's non-negotiable. Like I accept the terms and conditions of that.
Intention plus habits plus consistency plus time equals win. So
yeah, I like that. All
right, guys. Well, look, again, thanks, Jackson, for coming on, mate. And for any of you guys, again, just click the link below. You'll find information there on Jackson, information about the new course that we're bringing out together. Again, thanks for your time, brother.
Yeah, man. Grateful and pumped to get this course out.
Thanks, champ. All right.